What is shocking to me is that Kill Bill is not on your list.
Oh my god!
How much you love Kill Bill.
I forgot Kill Bill! Redo.
Hello and welcome to On The Watch, where we don't let our fandom get in the way of our honest criticism. If you've enjoyed our work so far, please like, share, subscribe, and high kick that bell button. I'm your host Maz, and this is my stuntman. He always helps me carry my load. My brother Pej. How the heck are you, buddy?
Well,
Groovy. Welcome to our review of Quentin Tarantino's 9th movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I suppose it's safe to say that we both enjoy Quentin Tarantino's work.
it's safe to say.
Longtime fans.
Absolutely. I like almost his whole filmography. I haven't seen Jackie Brown.
Shame on you, Pej.
Shame on me.
Shame on you.
It's on my list of shame.
As it should be.
And I hear great things about it. One of his more mature films.
It is one of his more mature films,
Uh-huh.
but it's also the movie that is the most unlike any Quentin Tarantino movie.
It's not a bad thing, even though I like whatever he makes, except for Django.
I am one of the biggest Tarantino apologists that I know. Even enjoyed his lesser movies like Death Proof.
Did you like Django?
I'm gonna put you on the spot here, Pej. What are your top 5 Quentin Tarantino movies? You know what? I'm gonna give you some time to prepare. I'm gonna start with mine. At number 5, I have Jackie Brown. It is one of the most mature films Tarantino has made, and everybody's great in it, but it is unlike any other Tarantino movie. And I think it was a real stretch for him to go outside of his comfort zone and do this. Overall, it's a great movie. Number 4, for me, has to be Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. We both grew up on martial arts movies, and we both have this nostalgic affinity towards them. And I think Kill Bill delivered on all fronts. Uma Thurman is amazing in this, and I wish Kill Bill had gotten more recognition than it does now, because when it came out, it was seen as this extremely B, janky action movie. And I think it deserves way more praise than it does. At number 3, surprisingly, I have Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I freaking love this movie, but we'll get into it later.
Obviously, you don't love it enough.
At number 2, I have Pulp Fiction. I think this is Quentin Tarantino's most culturally relevant movie. Most quoted, most mimicked, most copied, most memed. At number 1, I have Inglourious Basterds. I don't think, except for maybe 2001 Space Odyssey, I've watched any other movie this much. There was a period in time when I used to watch it every single night before I went to sleep. That movie is a masterpiece. The writing, the cinematography, the way in which he tells that story, just the whole flow of the movie, the feel of it, the world he creates. That movie is flawless. And I've spent hours upon hours, months on end, just dissecting that movie. And I believe it's one of the best movies ever made, period.
I'm shocked Django didn't make your list.
That being said, how's your top 5 looking?
Number 5 is the first movie I watched from Tarantino. And actually, it's the first movie he made. Reservoir Dogs. It was actually when I started going to film school.
No pressure.
It actually took some pressure off because it showed me that you can make a great movie with very little means.
Except for, having Harvey Keitel, Steve Buscemi.
I was talking more like budgetary. Number 4 is gonna shock you. Pulp Fiction.
I need a moment. How, Pej?
How, Sway?
I have loved Pulp Fiction for the longest time. A couple of years ago, would have been way higher. But I think Tarantino has grown enormously as a director. Matured way more as a writer.
What's immature about a wallet that says bad motherfucker?
Now, I want you to go in that bag and find my wallet. Which one is it? It's the one that says bad motherfucker.
Number 3, Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. I fucking love those movies.
It's hard not to.
Uma Thurman is just mind-blowingly good in those movies. And she carries action very believably.
Slight tangent. Everybody's giving Tom Cruise and Keanu Reeves all this praise for doing their own stunts and doing their own action and being badasses, which they absolutely deserve. But I think Uma Thurman should be part of that conversation too.
Yeah. Number 2. The Hateful Eight.
Whoa,
Mm-hmm.
that is super high. Second slight tangent. We watched that movie together.
Yes.
We came out of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
You were bitter.
I was bitter.
You were bitter, sir.
Yes.
I was gushing on the movie, loving it, and you were not having it. What happened?
First of all-
what happened?
First of all, I'm shocked it didn't make your list.
I was really splitting hairs between Jackie Brown and Hateful Eight.
Hey, whatever. Second of all, it's not the movie I didn't enjoy. It was a terrible night. The whole night made it a bitter experience for me. Loved it that he went back to basics. Gorgeous movie. Breathtakingly gorgeous.
You know what's just amazing about that movie?
What?
That's Tarantino at the height of his power, right?
Yeah.
He could get all the budget in the world. And he's finally making a Western, which we all have wanted him to do for so long.
And he does a one-location movie.
And he does it in one location, indoors. And that score.
That score. Samuel Jackson truly put work into that role.
I think it's very easy to forget how good of an actor Sam Jackson
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
until you see him in a Quentin Tarantino movie.
And I loved my Channing.
I'm partial about him. And number 1,
Number 1 is a given, Inglourious Bastards. I was floored by the intro sequence.
it's the most intense scene I've ever seen in any movie.
Amazing scene.
That was our introduction to Christopher Waltz. Also, another performance that I don't think he's ever
Probably
going to be
not.
able
Not
to
at least
top.
not in cinema. I hear he's
Yeah.
pretty amazing in at plays,
Yeah.
but in cinema, I don't think so. He's gonna get a juicier role than that.
No.
Maybe Blofeld. Yeah, that was my top 5, Maz.
Good list.
Didn't you notice I didn't put Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in there?
I'm gonna use that as a segue, and I'm gonna segue my way into our review of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I freaking love this movie.
Did you now?
Yes. It's not his best,
Mm-hmm.
but then again, it's a super high bar.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we were making our top 5, it's like having 9 children have to make a top 5 out of them. And they're great, good-looking kids with great
I don't
moral
know,
compass.
Django.
I freaking love this movie, Pish. It looks great. The soundtrack is fantastic. The dialogue is just juicy and delicious. The acting is pure delight. And I feel like all of that goes without saying when it comes to a Tarantino movie.
Did I not enjoy Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? Wrong.
False.
I loved it. Really enjoyed it. Funny movie. Delightful movie. One could say this is Tarantino's version of a feel-good movie.
I would go even one step higher and say this is the closest thing to a romantic comedy we could ever get from Tarantino. It's an extremely sweet movie.
It is nearing 3 hours at 2 hours and 45 minutes. It does not feel so.
No, it's breezy.
Breezy. The performances, all of them, amazing. But these are people that I love. 2 of my major Hollywood crushes.
Major Hollywood crushes?
Margot Robbie. She's a great talent.
She is.
And she's not slight on the eye.
Okay, what's the second one?
The second one is my biggest love. Somebody who has had my heart from probably when I was 12, who has made me doubt my sexuality on many occasions. Brad freaking Pitt. I can't deny that man. I never could. I still can't at his age. What is he, 55? I still
Yes.
go like, woo, 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 woo. If there's anybody who could take my virginity away, it's Brad Pitt. Amazing actor. Gorgeous. Gorgeous man.
Slight tangent. At a certain point in this movie when Brad Pitt was communicating with the girl with Pussycat in sign language, I looked at you and you had a slight semi and he couldn't stop gushing about how cool Brad Pitt was. And then he took his shirt off and I heard noises come out of you, Paige, that I haven't heard since Khal Drogo first spoke.
That is true. That is true.
You creamed just a little.
That is true. Amazing cast in general. And they don't pull any punches. They are all on their A game. And I have to say, they sort of carry the movie.
Explain yourself.
I feel like the movie sort of depends on their charm.
You could say that about any Tarantino movie.
This movie more so than the other ones.
Pulp Fiction.
This movie more so than the other ones.
Jackie Brown.
Haven't seen it.
Hateful Eight.
This movie more so than the other ones. I hate saying this. While I enjoyed it a lot, he was being self-indulgent to the max. With a lot of sequences that just were there because he thought it was funny. You know what I mean?
No.
I laughed out a lot, liked them a lot. At the end of the day, I felt like this movie felt a little bit more empty isn't the right word. It's just it didn't have the depth that his other movies have. But a lot of its depth was in the background, which is also fine. But to me, it just was a little more slight.
I think the reason why it felt a bit more slight for you is that there isn't really a story in this.
There's not much going on. There's just about a friendship.
There is a loose plot,
Very loose.
but I think this is more than any of his other movies about character study and the relations between the characters.
Absolutely, and that's fine.
He lets you sit with the characters. Sometimes you're minutes on end sitting with Brad Pitt in a car just driving.
My other gripe.
You get a feeling of how his day is like, how he reacts to certain things. And I think it added so much to my enjoyment of the movie. Nothing in this movie is rushed. But yet, for a 2-hour, 45-minute movie, it felt like a breeze. And I think that is because you really felt like you were part of it. I don't think I've connected to a Tarantino movie in this way in any of other Tarantino movies.
I agree with that. I really connected to the friendship more than any of his movies. Very likable characters. It's just what you go into, Maz, and I go to Quentin Tarantino movies expecting a little bit more than just the character stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Joe Main.
I do, but I think that's what you bring to the movie.
Absolutely. I freaking love the movie, Maz. I just think it doesn't have the depth of, let's say, Inglourious Bastards.
Does this movie need it?
I think a bit.
It might be me, but I've never felt that I've seen a movie at the right time in my life where it clicked with me this much. This movie is essentially about getting old, falling in a routine, and losing yourself in a routine. And at the end, questioning if you're ever gonna be able to do something worth anything. You are in a routine, you kind of lose yourself in it. There's nothing wrong with it. But at a certain point in life, you had goals that you may or may not have achieved. And once you're in that position, you look back and you start wondering. But it was really, I fear to say, existential for me. I was right there with DiCaprio. I think Quentin Tarantino is right there as well. He's famously
Absolutely.
always said he's gonna make 10 movies. This is his 9th. I don't think it's a stretch to think that he's wondering what is gonna happen to him next. I think this is the most personal movie Tarantino has ever made.
Now, this movie sort of acts like the characters are the most important part. The plot is background material. But then again, at times it chooses. It's like, oh, you have to know this date, important hour, important date, important character. You know what I mean?
Joe Main.
It pretends you have to know a lot about Charles Manson, Sharon Tate, all of this stuff. It uses it as a plot device, whilst it doesn't give us as an audience much. Do you know what I mean?
Joe Main.
I know some stuff about Charles Manson and the Sharon Tate murder, but it's not as common knowledge as this movie pretends it to be. He didn't build this movie up as well as a cohesive whole as he did in Inglourious Basterds. And I'm comparing these two movies because they're both revisionist history movies.
So is Django Unchained.
So is Django Unchained. I somewhat needed a little bit more plot. It's fine if you want to have the real world stuff in the background, but then don't pretend like you have to know this date is important, this night is important. Then just let the movie happen.
I honestly disagree with you because once he kicks into that gear, it almost becomes like a documentary. Kurt Russell is narrating everything beat by beat, and you know Tarantino has done his research. It's basically educating us of what happened. But I just don't think you could be that precious about history when it comes to a Tarantino movie. They say
I'm not being precious about history, but you could go into that movie and literally have no idea and not even for a second be worried about Sharon Tate.
and I think that's the way Tarantino would want it.
Okay,
let's say
that's fine. That's fine. That's fine to have that. That's fine. I agree with that.
the Manson murders is something that happens during this movie. This movie is not about the Manson murders. I think Tarantino has a very clear moral compass. And we've seen it throughout his movies so far. We've seen it in Django Unchained. Django! We've seen it in Inglourious Bastards. And we've seen it here. This is the one that is the most personal to him. He loves cinema. He's extremely protective of it. He's extremely protective of writers, filmmakers, actors, crew, everybody who's involved in the process of filmmaking. I feel like, especially when it comes to writing, everybody is saying, write what you know. And Tarantino just ignores that and changes the rules and says, write what you wish had happened. And better yet, just write what you wish and want. And he wants to bring justice to the people who've done horrendous acts of violence and crimes to humanity.
Let's talk about something controversial. What do you think about Margot Robbie and her role?
I'm of two minds about it. I think Margot Robbie did a brilliant job acting it.
Absolutely, I agree.
I wish she was given more, but also I understand why she wasn't given more. Like, even when she was watching Sharon Tate's movies, Tarantino wanted us to see Sharon Tate and not Margot Robbie as Sharon Tate. Her role in this movie was a celebration of who Sharon Tate was, and not the Hollywood made-up persona of Sharon Tate. Just a Sharon Tate that does regular stuff. She goes to the store, she buys a book, she goes to the movies, watches her own movies, and just marvel at people's reaction.
Again, agree with that wholeheartedly. I like her daily life, but she could have been used more. I have to give a shout out to Margaret Qualley. I loved her in The Leftovers.
She was freaking amazing.
She was amazing. One other thing I noticed is Quentin Tarantino usually has social commentary in his movies.
Yes.
This movie, social commentary, all in the background. In the radio, on the TV, almost not noticeable.
This is the most subtle Tarantino has ever been.
I don't know. He's basically going with the mainstream because the hippies are totally not cool and Hollywood is A-okay.
I've heard that being said about this movie. But I feel like this is how Rick Dalton sees Hollywood at that point. He thinks like, back in his days, everything was okay. And now that these hippies have come along, he has no place in there anymore. So of course he's going to hate them. And I think that's what we're getting across. I don't think it's Tarantino being mainstream, because at the end, Rick actually does change his haircut. He's becoming one of the new hippie-ish, new wave kind of guys in the cinema. I think the movie is about his growth. It's about one of the old Hollywood guys changing and adjusting to the current climates. So I still think it's very anti-establishment. Well, this was our review of Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. If you have enjoyed our work so far, please like, share, subscribe, and uppercut that bell button. You can find us on all social media at Watch on the Watch.
And you can follow me here.
We'll be back soon.
No.
But until then...
I'm sorry, Bruce. And his estate.